Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. I've got a pretty cool story from back when I was a teenager working at Circle Square Ranch. There were 4 previous staff members who came onto the campgrounds uninvited one night and went through the entire camp and went into all of the bedrooms where the staff were with bottles of shaving cream and just doused all of the staff with shaving cream and did kind of miscreant stuff and wild stuff. And while they were doing that, and the staff would wake up because they were being hoaxed, somebody was pranking them, these 4 staff members who no longer worked at Circle Square that summer, the current staff, they'd wake up and with shaving cream all over their face, they said, "Who are you?" And these guys, they had bandanas pulled over their heads and just one in a room at a time. And all of them, their answer was, "I'm Rick Grundy." Every single one of them, "I'm Rick Grundy." And they ran away. And so I didn't know this was happening. I had no idea this was going to go on at all. And I knew these guys. Actually, I'm kind of friends with one. He's an OPP officer today. And I had no idea this was going on. And so in the morning at like 5 a.m., I got a knock on my door, a bang on my door, as a couple of my friends came to the cabin where I was at with their cans of shaving cream and their angry faces. How dare you break the bro code and punk us like this? We would never punk you. We're a team. Why would you do that to us? I don't have a clue. I did not have a clue what they were talking about. Mistaken identity. They came in and they blamed me. And it took about 30 minutes to an hour to calm them down, but finally they got a clue, realizing that it wasn't me. I'm like, guys, if I came in to prank you, would you honestly expect me to say it's Rick Grundy and run away? Did you think? So they finally got a clue. They finally knew it wasn't me. And I didn't find out who these 4 guys were until somebody blabbed it to me 10 years after the fact, maybe even longer, maybe 15 to 20 years after the fact. Craziness. Okay, so what about you? Have you ever been blamed for something that wasn't your fault, and then you had to convince the other person that you didn't do anything and try to say, "I'm innocent," and try to restore the relationship? If you got a cool, funny story, hopefully it's funny and it's not too traumatic. If you got a cool, funny story and you're watching with someone, please pause the video and share that story with whoever you're watching with. This video is based on my interpretation of Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18, which we generally know as the passage of the armor of God. And in this passage, we are going to see something that has to do with mistaken identities and correcting it. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18. A final word. Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. For shoes, put on the peace that comes from the good news, so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all of these, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. Put on salvation as your helmet, and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Here's the direction I'm going in this video. I want to talk about spiritual armor for a stable life. So as I am going to present this and my interpretation of how we can look at this and how we can apply this, we're going to be looking at the spiritual pieces of armor and try to figure out how we can use these and what they mean in order to stabilize ourselves so that we can have better relationships with the people around us, less blaming, more relevant, more present with people. And so that we come as a much calmer, safer person, and others then will see us as a little bit more relevant and approachable. And all of that is around this spiritual armor of God, spiritual armor for a stable life. And I've got 2 points to make with this. And the first point that I want to bring us to is this: people are not your enemy. The text says we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. Believe it or not, I see people being made out to be the enemy a lot when I'm doing family or marriage counseling. One of the problems that couples will get into, or families will get into, is instead of seeing the problem as something the couple together can work on, they will name one of the persons, like their wife or their husband. They'll name that person as the problem. And then suddenly that's unfixable. Like, if the person is the problem, how are you going to fix that? It's like now the person goes into defense mode, like having to defend their own existence. That's not very helpful at all. Externalizing the problem in couples or in family work is very good. And we're kind of seeing that here a little bit. That when we go through life and we're looking at all the people around us as though those people are the problem, nothing can be fixed. Because if people are the problem, that's a real problem, because people have the right to exist. We don't need to be attacking people or up in people's face saying, your personality doesn't count. Your likes, your dislikes, your preferences, they don't matter. They don't count. You don't get a vote. We can't live life like that. We then become the problem. If we see people as the problem, the catch-22 is that we have become the problem because we're denying the right of other people to just exist. We are all under the influence of brokenness. We're all hurting somehow, and we are just trying the best that we can to live our lives and stay above water. Are we getting things wrong? Absolutely, because we're influenced by our own brokenness, and namely, I'm referring to a spiritual brokenness. The very start of our story, very soon after creation, is the story of deceit. The devil deceived us. And now we've got a problem with sin. The fundamental problem of all of us is actually our sinful nature. And we're talking about the sinful nature, we're talking about brokenness. We don't point our fingers and saying, you're the problem. We point our fingers at ourselves and say, oh, no, wait a minute, I'm the problem. There's a problem inside of me that needs to be taken care of. We're all in this together, and we all have this great big need of the fix and the healing that Jesus brings with him when we choose to ask him for help and become a follower of him. We're all under the influence of something spiritual that can't be touched. And our only hope to fix this is Jesus' plan, which includes his death and resurrection and second coming. It's a really unfortunate thing that we do, habit that we have, to blame other people as though they're the problem. We're in a broken system filled with broken people. And when we start casting blame on other people and thinking that they are the problems, we actually become the problem, because we paint them as though they're the problem, and that's a problem because we're denying their right to exist. That's a really bad idea. People are not the problem. The fundamental problem of all of humanity is the sinful nature. We are all coming from a place of brokenness and doing the very best we possibly can to keep our head above water. Are we messing up? Yeah, we're messing up because we're coming from a place of brokenness. Here's the second point. Spiritually ground. The text says, put on every piece of God's armor so you'll be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Now, grounding is a phrase that I take from psychotherapy. It really just means to calm down, get your head in the game, stop doing this crazy cycle stuff in the head, stop getting angry, calm down, be a gentler person, get your mindset on right, rather than going piece by piece through the armor, which would take too long, and I don't want to do that, and I'm not sure how fruitful that would be for this particular video. I just want to share the general idea of what I see. If we treat others like they're the problem, we become the problem, right? We've all been touched by spiritual deceit, by spiritual deficit, that each of us need to take care of what's going on with our own problem on the inside. So we actually have to present ourselves so that people don't experience us as casting blame on them, but people experience us as stable, as not like emotionally off the rails and angry and attacky. We don't want others to experience us like that, because that's just going to escalate them. Each of the pieces of the armor causes us to gain some kind of self-control so that we root ourselves behind Jesus as his followers, and we treat others with grace and with honor and with respect that everybody's due. Remember, we're told to stand our ground. That's what the text says. The text says stand our ground. It doesn't say go on the attack. You and I are physical beings. How in the world are we supposed to wage a spiritual war as a physical person? I mean, outside of prayer, outside of like leaning into Jesus and doing those spiritual things that we've been taught how to do. We can't wage a spiritual war. We don't go on the attack. We're told to stand our ground as the attack comes to us. And really the attack is a lot of times coming from the inside of us. So know the truth that we find in the Bible is one way to ground, and that would be the reference to the belt of truth, that if we're grounding in the truth, that we know the truth because we're reading our Bibles. So essential. If you want to grow as a Christian, if you want to grow as a Jesus follower, it's essential for you just to get in the Bible and just continue to let God and his Spirit speak to you himself as you really wrestle with the content and try to make sense of it. So know the truth we find in the Bible. That's the belt of truth. Live the truth as a Jesus follower. That would be the breastplate of righteousness. I mean, righteousness is not living a perfect life. That's not what righteousness is a gift. That God would see us as being the right kind of person, doing the right kind of thing. Righteousness is a gift. So when we choose to say, Jesus, you're right, I'm a sinner, I'm imperfect, I need forgiveness, and please forgive me, it is as though God points his finger out and says, that's right. That's right. That's righteousness. It's a gift. So that breastplate of righteousness, or that body armor of righteousness, as we're looking at it here, is really our relationship with Jesus. Share the truth of the gospel. That's the shoes, that's the readiness, right? What would we actually be doing as we interact with other people? We are spiritually relevant. We're not the kind of people that pushes people away. We're grounded, and there's a spiritual relevance to us that can help connect people with Jesus. That's sharing the truth of the gospel, that Jesus loves everybody, that he died, he rose again, he's coming again. Trust the truth and don't waver. That's the shield. There's so much coming at us that can knock us off course. We just stand firm with our shield, knowing that we don't live by sight, we live by faith. And we know that Jesus is coming again, and we place our hope in the second coming. That's our shield of faith. Accept and own the truth as your truth and your worldview. That would be the helmet of salvation, making sure your head is in the game. Paul, throughout his letters, often makes reference to our mindset, saying you need a mindset where you know that Jesus is true. Your worldview is that this is God's world, we're his creatures, and he's coming back for us. Do things that are spiritually relevant for eternity. That would be the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God. Doing things that are relevant for eternity, which is really pointing to Jesus. It's not attacking. It's not going into the world like we have a flaming sword declaring war and attacking all the evil and bad that we see. That's not this. It's making sure that we're doing things that are spiritually relevant. So essentially, we're being called to be non-escalated, non-escalating. That's the calling here. That's the essential nature of the spiritual armor. Be non-escalated and non-escalating. Well, so that it allows us to be spiritually relevant. It allows us to be present with people because we're no longer blaming them, and we're taking care of our own business about what's going on inside here. Remember what Jesus said in the Gospels. Don't point out the speck in somebody else's eye when you got a huge log in your own eye, right? The spiritual armor is to help us take care of our own business so that then we are much more presentable and we give others a better experience of ourselves. So that they'll come to us, and then we can have some relevance to them about connecting them with Jesus. We need to be non-escalated and non-escalating people. We're all being called to stay sound-minded and relevant to others they connect to Jesus. Here's the takeaway. People are not the problem. The problem is spiritual, and Jesus is the fix. However, you and I can become the problem if we treat others as though they are the problem. Because now it's like we're denying the right to exist and have preferences and have experience and be impacted by the trauma that they might have in their past. We become the problem when we start saying that others are the problem. Be a non-escalated and a non-escalating person so that you can be a person of spiritual relevance to those around you. All starts with the heart. Let that spiritual armor guide you to doing work in your heart so that instead of casting out, you're casting in and getting right with Jesus so that you can be spiritually grounded. Okay, that's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you please ask for the link? We meet at 1:30 and also 6 o'clock on Sundays. If you have an idea about a certain kind of group that you want to connect with, I don't know. I mean, I'm connecting with men at 6 o'clock. I'm connecting with anybody at 1:30. If you've got a special interest, like maybe you want to connect as newly marrieds, long-term marrieds, families, parents, whatever. If you've got a theme that you want me to base a group around and you're willing to show up for it, to have some discussions around this text, then I'd be willing to talk to you about putting together a group like that. It's very exciting. Okay, for community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. I'll see you next time.